The Niners appear to be going with Jimmy G at quarterback. Nothing official, of course. How long can the vet hold off the rookie Trey Lance? Cowboys are passing on Cam Newton. Nah, we're good. Will they end up regretting that decision? And he's a former #1 pick, but are people sleeping on Baker Mayfield in Cleveland this season? Good Friday morning, everyone. Welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe alongside Nick Wright, Kevin Wilds. We got Stink. Mark Schlereth is joining us this morning. What was Baker's nickname? Oh, Mr. Dangerous. Or he woke up feeling dangerous. Is that what it was, Nick?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's
Baker.
correct. Yeah,
I woke up feeling dangerous this morning.
Yeah.
Are we going to see dangerous Baker Mayfield this season?
Oh, I believe so. I believe he's going to feel dangerous all season, Jenna. It's a great question. I'm sure Stink fully agrees. Big Baker Mayfield guy because he's a smart man. I'm certain of it.
Okay, so there'll be no disagreements on that whatsoever. I can feel it already. Oh, we'll get to Baker. Dangerous Friday mornings. We got to start up in New England with a story for all Patriots fans. Looking at you, Kevin Wilds. With the release of Cam Newton a few days ago, Mac Jones became the man in New England. But was it warranted? Apparently, the answer was yes. OC Josh McDaniels, big fan of what he saw in Jones this preseason, said, quote, he continues to put the game and the team first. Do you want further proof? Check this out from Pro Football Focus. Mac Jones had the highest preseason passing grade by a rookie quarterback since 2015, ahead of Patrick Mahomes and Baker Mayfield and Dak Prescott and that guy Alex. So, Nick, are you buying Mac Jones' preseason success is a sign of things to come? I did by mistake.
Well, here's the... Okay. First on Pro Football Focus... Listen, I was an early adopter of Pro Football Focus. Sam Monson, back when he still lived in Ireland, would come on my radio show in Kansas City in 2009. So I take this as a personal affront that my friends at Pro Football Focus would create some metric where it makes Kevin Wilds, Patrick Mahomes, Mac Jones comparison seem to have some credence. They shouldn't have done it. It irritates and angers me, and it gives some validation to Wilds' worst take of this young football season. But here is why I am not buying the preseason hype. Stink, what we know about the NFL draft is that there is no instance where all the quarterbacks are good. In fact, what's the best quarterback draft ever? 83, most people would say Elway, Marino, Kelly. Well, there's a couple other first-round picks, including the one my Chiefs took at 7th overall, Todd Blackledge, that it's like, okay, they didn't work out. You have, hey, the draft from a few years ago. Baker's awesome. Lamar's awesome. A lot of people love Josh Allen. But then you also have Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen. So there were 5 first-round quarterbacks this year. Trevor, Zach, Trey, Justin Fields, and Mac Jones. Right now, all 5 teams with all 5 quarterbacks are like, our guy's going to be awesome. Well, NFL history tells us at least 2 of them, probably 3 of them, won't be. So if I had to rank them on likelihood of being awesome, I think Mac Jones is the least likely of the 5, not the most likely of the 5. So no, I'm not buying the preseason hype on Mac Jones, even though he did play very well and he won that quarterback job fair and square, Stink.
Yeah, well, I would look at the Pro Football Focus numbers from, the preseason games, and I'd throw those out the window. That doesn't mean anything to me because what you're getting is very vanilla looks. You're not really working on game plan or scheme. You're working on lining up correctly, using the proper leverage on defense, making sure that you can cover one-on-one, making sure that you hit your spots in your zones. So it's pretty simple. But here's where I'm really impressed. Not with athleticism, because everybody looks at quarterbacks or everybody looks at athleticism and makes that the measure of a guy's ability to play. Hey, Patrick Mahomes is athletic. There's no question. He's unbelievable. But it's the neck up that makes him great. That's what really sets him apart. His ability to understand where everybody on the football field is, where all 5 eligibles are, but most importantly, where all 7 coverage guys are. Where are those guys? And exactly if I look at one side of the football field and I think I don't like that look. I know where everybody else is, not only on the offensive side, but on the defensive side. So I would say that's the most impressive part of Mac Jones, what he did in these scrimmages, the way he scrimmaged against the Giants. See, to me, playing professional sports, different than college sports, is that you have to be exceptional at seeing things, having vision, and understanding instantly what you have, where everybody is. So it's like riding a bicycle. When you first rode your bicycle, you know, you had to think about putting your foot on the pedal, and you had to think about your balance. And when you turned, you know, you started to lean over and you didn't have it right. And then eventually you get on your bike and you just ride the damn thing. You don't even think about it. When you start playing with instinct, when you start playing like you're riding a bicycle and it's the 1,000th time you've rode your bicycle, when you start playing that way, you're playing with speed from the neck up. And that's what's impressive about Mac Jones. He doesn't have to think. He's just out there. He sees it. He believes it. He doesn't wait for it. He just lets it rip. And that's what he's done better than any of these other rookie quarterbacks, in my opinion.
All right, so I'm going to show you a video in a second. But first I want to respond to Nick Stink. So to me, Nick is a non-Mac Jones believer. To me, Mac Jones is the Ted Lasso of quarterbacks. Anybody who has seen it loves it. A lot of people haven't seen it, like, I don't know, it's about soccer, Sudeikis. Is Sudeikis like, oh, that great? Like, yeah, if you've seen it, you absolutely love it. The coaches love Mac Jones. Nick Saban loves Mac Jones. Belichick loves Mac Jones. Josh McDaniels loves Mac Jones. The Giants quarterback was unnamed, said, whoo, Mac Jones out there looking like, who? Tom Brady. Then the players love Mac Jones, right? The offensive players love Mac Jones. The defensive players, like, yeah, Mac Jones can read everything. The thing that I am worried about, though, Stink, is this. Somebody tweeted this out. If we could throw it up. And there's a video attached to it. They're like, Mac Jones will definitely have his hands full week one. Shout out to Big E the second. Also, shout out to Big E the first. No one ever talks about him anymore. Here's the video they tweeted. This made me nervous, Stink, up against Justin Herbert, what the Dolphins are doing. As an offensive player, how do you think Mac Jones is going to respond when he sees this sort of like crazy stuff that Brian Flores is going to put out to start to scare him?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's incumbent upon the coaches to keep you out of those situations. I'm sure that's probably some nickel situation, second down and 12 plus, third down and 7+, where you know you're getting you're throwing the football. And part of that is coaching. Can we keep you out of those situations? Can we keep you in situations as a coaching staff where it's third down and 4-, and now they have to defend the whole field? They can't play amoeba defense. They've got to line up and show what they're doing. So they'll have a plan for that. There is no question. You've just got to sort those things out, and you have to understand, and this is why some college quarterbacks just don't translate well in the National Football League, is you have to understand protection. A lot of colleges, they don't do the protection aspect of things. They just lock up 6 or 7 guys, and then they say, hey, our guys on the outside are better athletes than your guys on the outside, so let's just go ahead and let's play one-on-one football. Let's have no reads, and let's just go. And that's going to be different. I don't think Mac Jones doesn't come from that kind of program, because Steve Sarkisian, his offensive coordinator, is a former professional. He's a professional coordinator. He was in pro football for a long, long time. So he'll understand the checks. He'll understand what they've got. And I just think, again, the Patriots, even though they didn't go to the playoffs last year, of the 7 teams that went to the playoffs, and I always look at running attempts, because it's the way the game plays out, and it's your commitment to running the football. Yeah. Out of the 7 teams that had the most attempts in football last year, 5 went to the playoffs. New England, not one of those teams, even though they were in the top 7 of attempts. So he'll have a running game to support him, to support the play action, to 100%. Support the run action, more importantly. And they'll take care of some of that kind of stuff that you see from Brian Flores. They'll take care of that, just because they'll play situational football, and they'll keep them out of a lot of those situations.
And listen, I think the Patriots will be good-ish this year. I think they will be fighting with the team they are playing week 1, Miami, for that final wild card spot in the AFC. So it's a sneaky, super important week 1 game. But 2 very quick things. One is Wilds. Did you notice the first time around? Because Stink said it twice. And listen, while you know a lot about football, Jenna knows a lot about football, I know a lot about football, Stink knows the most. And he made a point to twice say what makes Mahomes great and how you measure a quarterback. He didn't say the chin up. He said the neck up. So Stink understands the importance, like where we're really measuring these guys, how big, thick, and strong of a neck they have. That's the first point. No, well, it's true. I mean, Stink's own words. But the other thing where Mac Jones, he's going to have a lot of adjustments this year. The speed of pro football, the level of athlete, all of that. The other major adjustment he's going to have, he is the only rookie quarterback who is going to be playing this year with worse wide receivers than he had last year. Like Alabama with Devontae Smith, with what? Well, I'm not wrong. Right now, Jalen Waddle when he was out there, Devontae Smith, the wide receiving core they had the last 2 years at Alabama is a better collection. This isn't Alabama could beat the Jaguars take, but it is Alabama's receivers the last couple of years is a better collection than Jacoby Myers, Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, and N'Keal Harry. So he went from one of the greatest wide receiver talent rooms of talent in college football history to a bottom 5 wide receiver room in the NFL. Now, I know he's going to have the tight ends. They're going to lean on the running game, but they're not bottom 5? Okay, no. Find me the 5 worst. You've got another hour and 45 minutes to do it. We'll revisit it. 5 worst wide receiver rooms. I'd love to know it. But yeah. I just think it's going to be, Jenna, I think that's going to be a tough adjustment for him.
Okay, we need 4.
I will also say this. Wilds, if we saw that Dolphins video, there's probably a decent chance Belichick saw it too. So Stink's right. Coaches on them to get him ready for that. 9 days till Mac takes the field against those Dolphins. Time for Drawing a Blank. Now, the Baltimore Ravens added some new weapons to their receiver room this offseason. One of them, Sammy Watkins, who's back at practice. Who's not at practice? Rashad Bateman and Miles Boykin both getting moved to the IR. So once again, Lamar will be asked to do a lot with a little. Hey, Stink, Lamar Jackson's weapons this season are blank.
Irrelevant. Lamar Jackson is such a dynamic player. He is such a dynamic player, and this offense is so incredibly hard to prepare for. And when you think about all the zone read stuff, all the option stuff that they run, you simply can't, as a defense, prepare for that for the week. You can't get a good look at it, and you can't do it live in practice in today's game. So you have to basically learn on the fly. When you learn on the fly in the first and second quarter on how you want to get your run fits, who wants to play force, who's got the fullback, who's got the tailback, who's got the pitch, who's got the quarterback, and you've got to go through that. By the time you kind of get a plan together and have a feel for it, you're already down by 14 points. So I just don't think they're relevant. I think this offense is so unique. It is so hard to prepare for. And Lamar is such a dynamic player that you can put anybody out there. He's going to get one-on-one matchups because you're hell-bent for election to stop the run. I just don't think they matter.
Yeah, I think they might, though, matter, Stink, to Lamar's ability to secure the bag and get the contract extension that quietly Lamar and Baker still waiting on those. Season starts a week from yesterday, and we thought maybe all 3 of those quarterbacks were going to get their contract extensions. Only Josh Allen has gotten his. But I do think it's somewhat of the status quo. The Ravens have not been able to get this right since Lamar's been there. And so when right now your healthy guy is Sammy Watkins, that's a concern. Sammy Watkins was awesome for the Chiefs when he was available. He was awesome for the Bills when he was available. Problem is, he is rarely available. Boykin's on the IR. Bateman, who was supposed to be the guy who really put them to another level as a first-round pick, that is receiver's a tough position to make an impact on as a rookie. It's almost impossible if you miss essentially all of training camp and now the first few weeks, 6 weeks of the season, as he's going to. And so then you're leaning on Hollywood Brown, who he has had trouble of his own staying healthy. Sometimes Wild's a position group is just snake bit with injuries. And for the Ravens, this was where they thought they were going to upgrade this year. So it looks like they're going to be a lot like the Ravens wide receiver room last year, which was, Willie Snead and trying to patch it together, which wasn't great for Lamar's development.
Yeah, so that's why I said tight end centric. Mark Andrews led the team in yards per game. Guess who else did? So did Kittle. So did Kelsey. Problem is, those guys had, 75, almost 100 yards per game. Mark Andrews had 50. But, Stink, I want to ask you a question. The narrative, or there was a storyline like, people have figured out Lamar. This is going to be the year, Lamar gets figured out. That seems to be something that's circulating around the media, but we've had several players on, you being the latest one, who just don't buy that at all. What do you think the disconnect is between the media saying, they're going to figure out Lamar, and former players saying, no, it's too hard, it's impossible?
Yeah, well, the disconnect is that, you look at Lamar and you look at the skill set and the way he runs the football and the way the Ravens run the football, and you're like, okay, you'll figure him out if he diminishes as an athlete. Because right now, he is the freak show of all freak show athletes. When he makes defensive backs in the NFL look silly by the way he runs around them, like, are you going to figure out athleticism? Are you going to figure out his ability to move? I mean, that until that diminishes it, until that wanes, he is what he is. And the way they run their offense, they do such a great job because Lamar, in many instances, becomes another running back out back there. The way they run it, if you split the field in half, and I do this all the time, I'll just draw a line down the middle of the football field. They'll pull guys in quick motions from one side to the other side, and then all of a sudden you split it in half and you got 5 guys on one side and 5 guys on the other side, and all of a sudden you have 7 blockers with Lamar carrying the ball on that half of the football field. So you're getting a 5-on-7 matchup against the defense. You figure that out. Well, we got 2 extra blockers to your number of defenders. You're not figuring that out. And because you pack so many people in there, you're getting one-on-ones on the outside to your tight ends, to your running backs, or to your wide receivers, and you're getting those seam shots down the middle where you've got one-on-one coverage, and that's where Lamar is dangerous in the passing game. So are you going to figure it out? No, you're not going to figure that out because nobody else does it.
So, Stink, couple things, including a question. First one is, you're making me nostalgic for doing radio because nothing screams a radio studio like a broken chair off in the background that one of your goofy co-hosts tried to stand on and broke. Every radio studio I've ever worked in is just littered with broken chairs, random things. I'm sweating I want to be in that studio with you. So,
one other thing is, and I didn't even realize this, the Nolan Arenado jersey that has Benedict Arnold.
Yeah, Benedict Arnold. Yeah, I knew it. I knew Arenado. Exactly. That's the other thing. It's like you leave the Rockies, Benedict Arnold hanging in the studio. But let me ask you a quick question, though, about what you're saying about guys not being able to figure it out. So, because I think the layman would say, you know what teams should do? Whatever Lamar's playoff opponents have done. That's what they should do because it seems like in the playoffs, they've had success against him. If those playoff teams aren't figuring it out, is that more that Lamar has just played well beneath his capabilities in the postseason? Or is it that in the postseason he's seeing different fits because the worst games of his career, 3 of the 5 worst games of his career have been his 3 playoff losses?
Right. Well, one, he's playing better football teams in the playoffs. And then I think the other big thing about Baltimore and the way they're structured, because I think they play the best complementary football in the National Football League. The way they run the ball, the way they control the clock, what ends up happening is they get the ball, they cram it down your throat for 8 minutes because you're not used to the fits. You haven't seen, the real live action. You haven't seen Lamar in the flesh. It's like Randy Moss. People used to watch film on Randy Moss and go, I think I can run with him. And then they get on the field with him and he would glide by them like it's effortless. And they're like, no, on second thought, I can't run with him. Nobody can run with him, right? And so until you see Lamar in real life, you don't realize the athleticism and the speed. You convince yourself watching film that you guys can corral him, but you can't.
Right.
And so what ends up happening is you get behind in those games when they get the ball first and you start counting possessions and you feel like, shoot, a normal game has 13 possessions. We're going to get 8. We got to score every time. In the playoffs, what ends up happening is the other team scores, they get a shutdown, whatever the case may be, and they get ahead. And the Baltimore Ravens aren't really built to play from behind. But Lamar has very few wins coming from behind. If you get down by 10 points, they're not a efficient passing team unless they're running the snot out of the ball. And that's what has happened to them in the playoffs, where they've been beaten. They get an offense that puts together, a 4-play like the Chiefs, a 4-5 play drive that takes a minute and 30 seconds and hangs 7 on you. And the next thing you know, you're starting the opposite. You're starting to count possession, going, man, we can't afford to run the ball every single down because we're going to run out of time. And they're not built they're not, and that's why they're trying to bolster the receiver position. That's why they're trying to have him become a better passer. So those are the things that happen to them come playoff time.
Mark Schlereth, I know you got to go do some radio. We thank you so much, as always. Great perspective. Love having you.
Always a pleasure.
Have a great rest of the
Thanks,
weekend. We got Bucky Brooks with us this morning. Morning, Bucky. We're running the No Huddle. Starting off with Baker Mayfield. Pro Football Focus has Baker as the quarterback for their all-underrated team this season. Baker had the second-best passing grade from Week 7 on last season. PFF obviously expecting big things. But, Nick, you think people are sleeping on Baker?
Well, not the person speaking right now, but the vast majority of everyone else outside of the greater Cleveland metropolitan area is sleeping on Baker and the Browns. They're the second-best team in the AFC. Baker Mayfield, all he's done, is set records as a rookie, and then as a third-year player, wins a playoff game, wins double-digit games with the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns win double-digit games, and, he's in the game at Arrowhead. Now Mahomes went down, so of course that changed things, but he's in the game. Yeah, I think people are sleeping on him. I think he and Odell will have a better connection this year than in years past. And, Bucky, here's the thing. Can we show the schedule? I love how the schedule sets up for Cleveland. They get Kansas City in Week 1 at Arrowhead. They'll lose that game. But it will let them know how far or how close they are to the Chiefs. And then just cakewalk city for a couple months. The Texans, the Cardinals, the Bengals, you don't have another great team that you're playing. Great team until Week 12. So that sets them up to be 8-3 going into that Ravens game. So I think its schedule sets up well. Kind of, maybe get a little chip on their shoulder after Week 1. I think Baker's going to have an excellent year. I think the Browns are going to have an excellent year.
Well, I agree with you that the Browns are going to have an excellent year, and Baker's set up to have an excellent year. I think the slept-on part is difficult because it's hard to separate the player from the performance, meaning Baker Mayfield's a former number one overall pick, but I don't think anyone views him as a top 5 player. However, when you look at this team, great system, maybe the best supporting cast in football. Number 1 offensive line, Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb. They have that Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry. They have everything that you could want. He is going to play well because the system is a perfect fit for him. So he will benefit from winning, even though I don't know if he's in that same category as Patrick Mahomes and others as a top 5 quarterback.
He's not.
Sure.
I'm going to throw that out there. Let's head to Dallas, where yesterday Mike McCarthy made it very clear the Cowboys are not interested in bringing in Cam Newton. Listen to him tell you.
Did you guys have any interest in adding Cam Newton, and if not, what?
I mean, just sit here and talk about any of the players on our roster. I don't think there's really anything that beneficial that comes out of that for us. But I had a chance to compete against Cam. A chance to watch some of his tape in New England. So I still think he has a ton of football left. But we're very excited about the group that we have.
Wild. Mike McCarthy, not interested in Cam. You think the Cowboys will regret not bringing him in to back up Dak Prescott?
No, because Andy Dalton is better than Cam, and Andy Dalton couldn't get anything done. If Dak Prescott goes down, Bucky, the Cowboys season is shot. The idea that your backup quarterback is going to put the Cowboys over the edge, I think we saw it last year, just not going to work. So here's the thing that I have to ask you as a football insider versus me, just a layman. Can we stop saying I watched some tape on Cam Newton? Just say you watched SportsCenter or you watched some Patriots highlights. I got a chance. Bucky, I got a chance to grind. I got a chance to grind out some Cam Newton tape. What'd you do? You watch a Buffalo game? Went 5 for 10, threw for 34 yards. Just say you saw some highlights or you watch House of Highlights on your Instagram. Don't tell me you're grinding Cam Newton tape, just like you were grinding tape of every single snap in your barn, which then you later admit was a lie.
I think this is going to be a similar refrain that we hear from many coaches around the league regarding Cam Newton. Cam Newton is talented enough to play. I disagree with you in terms of Andy Dalton being better than him. But here's the thing. Coaches are going to have a tough time bringing Cam in because, one, he's an alpha personality. When you bring him in the locker room, the other players are going to gravitate towards him. And if you have an insecure QB1, that is something that you're not really trying to bring into your locker room because you don't want to deal with those problems. Also, his style of play requires you to revamp your offense. For a backup quarterback, you're not trying to add more to your plate as a play caller and play designer. That is why Cam Newton's going to have a tough time getting a job, even though he's talented enough to play in this league.
All right, let me address this, then I have to address the elephant in the room, which is something Wild said. First, will they regret it? Not if Dak Prescott plays 17 games, but if and when Dak Prescott has to miss time. Can we show the Cowboys' backup statistical resume? Because it'd be better if it were non-existent.
Jarring.
Instead, it exists, but it exists in some circle of football hell. The guy with the better resume is the guy with 2 career passing yards, because at least he's done nothing. Will Greer's had a couple of opportunities, got mollywopped 80-16, the rarely seen 0 touchdown, 4 interception line, and a passer rating worse than the one you get if you just spike the football every play. So if Dak has to miss time, they are in the worst shape of any team in the league. But Kevin Wildes, the fickle mistress that is Kevin Wildes. As of 72 hours ago, you were advocating for Cameron J. Newton to be the week 1 starter for your team. That happened on live television. Now, you just said he's worse than Andy Dalton? Did you say
Andy
that?
Dalton starting. Look, I have also said on live television, trust in Bill Belichick. If Bill Belichick decides that Cam Newton is not worth a spot on the team, then Bill Belichick is right.
So does Kevin
Part
Wildes.
of the reason I said, I want Cam to start is because Bill was starting him in all the preseason games. Good enough for Bill, good enough for me. I'm an expert guy. You want to recommend it? It's like, Blockbuster Video. A Bill pick. That will be great. So if Bill was picking Cam, so was I. But if he's not, if he's saying, you know what, Cam, you're better off just on your couch, then I'm going to go with that. So I'm a Bill Belichick guy. Maybe it'll serve me wrong. Maybe I won't
also
get,
an Andy Dalton guy, evidently. Also the
he's
rare Andy Dalton guy. And by the way, he's got 6 Super Bowls.
Guy making
it's Brady who has 7. He didn't get. I know you got Brady's Super Bowl. Belichick didn't. Go ahead, Jenna. Sorry.
All right. We are heading out west to Denver, talk some Broncos, because, Bucky, you are all in on Teddy Bridgewater. You said earlier this week, after he was named the starter, Bridgewater is the perfect quarterback to help the Broncos make a playoff run. Bucky, tell us why you think this.
Well, when you look at Vic Fangio, a defensive-minded head coach, number one thing they want from the quarterback is not to mess the game up. Don't turn the ball over. And so with Teddy Bridgewater, you get a low-risk playmaker at the position, a guy who is a caretaker. And when he has been on good teams, he has won at a high level. When he played for the Minnesota Vikings and the New Orleans Saints, 22-11. This is a team that has a roster that is playoff ready. They just need a quarterback that can get them to the winner's circle. Teddy Bridgewater has proven in the past, when surrounded by the right team, he can win. I would expect him to win in Denver.
Teddy Bridgewater, man in Denver right now. We are back here with Bucky Brooks, talking Patriots now. Mac to the future. Oh, I love it. Patriots appear to be all in on Mac Jones. OC Josh McDaniels loves what he's seen, says Mac continues to put the game and the team first. And check this out from Pro Football Focus. Mac had the highest preseason passing grade, there it is, by a rookie quarterback since 2015. That is ahead of Patrick Mahomes, Nick. That is ahead of Baker Mayfield, Bucky. That is ahead of Dak Prescott, Wildes, and Alex. So, Bucky, you buying Mac Jones' preseason success is a sign of things to come?
I'm buying the fact that the Patriots are very comfortable with the style of play that Mac Jones offers. If you go back and look at the last 20 years, when the Patriots had Tom Brady, they played a certain way. And really going back to when it was the start of the dynasty, the early 2000s, Mac Jones reminds me of how the Patriots played with Tom Brady at that point, meaning Tom Brady, his first year as a starter, averaged around 189 passing yards. They leaned on the running game, and the defense played great complementary football and won a lot of close games. I envision this Patriots team being able to do the same. But because Josh McDaniels and some of the other offensive coaches are very comfortable with a playing style that Mac Jones presents to the offense, I think this is going to work out fine. And I do believe the Patriots are a playoff team, and I believe it would have been like that whether it was Cam Newton or Mac Jones.
Bucky, you're too nice. Bucky's gave good analysis there, and very cogent thoughts without saying what I think he really thinks, which is, I watch a lot of college football. I didn't look at Mac Jones as a no-doubt first-round pick, and of the rookie quarterbacks, if I'm ranking them as far as who can be, hey, he's on a list with Patrick Mahomes and Dak Prescott and Baker Mayfield. Who can be on that list in an NFL career? Mac Jones is not going to be my first pick, second pick, third pick, maybe not even my fourth pick of the 5 rookie first-rounders. And this is the thing. I know everybody, we're going to talk about the Sixers later in the show and the Ben Simmons trade. And one of the reasons it's hard to trade anyone in the NBA right now is everybody's offseason moves are going to work out great. Everybody loves their team. Just like in the NFL right now, everybody loves their quarterback they just drafted. Oh my God, they're all going to be awesome. But they're never all awesome. And so you have Justin Fields, you have Trey Lance, you have Zach Wilson, you have Trevor Lawrence, and you have Mac Jones. Are they going to be all 5 awesome? Nope. Are 4 of them going to be awesome? Well, that's never happened in a first-round NFL history. Are 3 of them going to be awesome? That has happened. Eli, Rivers, and Big Ben. I would argue Baker, Lamar, and Josh. And, of course, the famous one, Elway, Marino, and Kelly. But 3 is the high watermark. So, Wilds, if Mac Jones, if this is a sign of things to come, we got to start to figure out which of at least the other 2, at least 2 others, are going to stink. Because right now, everybody loves their quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence, Zach wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields. I know you're a big Andy Dalton guy, so I guess we can throw Justin Fields out. But still, we got to find another one. My money would be on Mac Jones being one of the 5 to not end up being a great quarterback. Maybe, yeah, could they win 9-10 games this year? Sure. I think they could because of the reasons Bucky laid out. But no, I don't think he's ever going to show up on another list with Patrick Mahomes for the remainder of his career.
Okay, so here's the thing. I think we're viewing quarterbacks totally differently. A lot of times when those great quarterbacks, you draft a quarterback in the first round, are you being drafted to a fantastic organization? Are you being drafted to a team that is sort of has everything in place and is built to succeed? Of course not. Of course not. We've seen tons of quarterbacks who are successful, are drafted into funky organizations and fail, right, Bucky? That is not what has happened with Mac Jones. Mac Jones was drafted to the best organization in football that got even better by spending over $150 million in free agency. So to speak to what Bucky says, Mac Jones is going to win. Mac Jones is going to win games by himself. Mac Jones is also going to benefit from Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels and the offensive line and the defense winning games for him. Let me just read you 3 stats from Cam Newton last year. 12 for 19, 69 yards and a touchdown. Not great. 9 for 18, 84 yards. Not great. 13 for 17, 118 yards. Not great. Bucky, we won all 3 of those games. So the idea that Mac Jones needs to come out and light the world on fire is just not true. We're 7-9 and we're 2 sort of Cam Newton goal line, like sort of stop at Seattle and a fumble in Buffalo from being 9-7. So we're right there. Mac Jones can be good enough to get us to the playoffs.
Man, wow, I want to take that French class that you take. Oui. All those we's coming from New England.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
Oh, you didn't know? You didn't know?
I was saying
I was on practice squad.
When I look at the,
Lap it up, Wilds.
When I look at the first-round quarterbacks, I said it reminds me of Avengers. All these guys have superpowers, with the exception of Mac Jones. He's Iron Man. The suit is his power. And so his superpowers come from Josh McDaniels, the offensive line, and what Bill Belichick does in terms of playing the game, utilizing his defense. If this comes down to a talent competition, Mac Jones is going to lose that evaluation. He's going to lose that competition. But he's smart enough to do it. I will say this. They were playing very simple Simon football with Mac Jones in the preseason. No one wants to say that, but those reads and the throws that he was making were isolation routes and ABC 1, 2, 3 completions. We will see how he performs when they dial it up and the complexity hits.
And Wildes, I know I'm giving you a hard time today. Maybe it's because I accidentally wore a Patriot-colored tie and I'm taking it out on you. But I agree with a lot of what you said. Most quarterbacks do go to a team that, was below 500 the year before they drafted him, that hasn't won a playoff game in a couple years. And by the way, that's the exact team Mac Jones just went to. A team that was sub 500 last year and hasn't won a playoff game since 2018, pardon me. That's the Patriots. I understand that it's the best organization, the best coach, all that stuff. Just, rough couple of years. But here's the other, what you're saying is different than what I think the question is. Can the Patriots be a playoff team? Yes. Can they improve on some of their deficiencies from last year? Yes. Can they do that even if Mac Jones is not awesome? I think yes. He just needs to not be terrible. But is this a sign of things to come? I would say the answer to that is no. And I want to ask Bucky a question because I think it annoyed Wildes when I brought it up earlier. I want Bucky's take on it. Bucky, what's the better wide receiver room? Alabama last year or New England this year?
Oh, Alabama last year. Alabama has 4 first-round picks that they've produced over the last 2 years. They are much better than what the New England Patriots present. I think what you get excited about with the Patriots are the tight ends, not the wide receivers. The tight ends, Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry, give them an opportunity to get down the middle and make some plays, combined with the fact that I believe they're going to play early 2000s football. Smash mouth running game like they did way back with Antoine Smith. They're going to win a bunch of 21-17 games, and that's what it's going to look like. But it's not because of Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar and those other guys on the outside.
Yeah, they're not going to put this all on Mac Jones' shoulders. They're going to put what they need to do around him, simplify that offense, and set him up to at least succeed early on. Bucky, thank you so much. Great as always. How about this? Monday morning, right here in First Things First, we have our official 2021 NFL season predictions. This is unlike any prediction on any other show. I can guarantee you that. Monday, 7:30 Eastern. Tune in. You will find out why. It is always a good time. Who sells that better than I do?
That's right.
Literally nobody. Back here with former Pro Bowl corner Brandon Flowers. Brandon, good morning. Thanks for being with us. We're talking some San Francisco 49ers. We're less than a week out from the start of the season, and somehow, some way, the Niners have yet to name a starting quarterback. Kyle Shanahan doing things a little differently out there in San Fran. Said, quote, I don't need to announce who the starting quarterback is. I bet you can figure it out. And so we did. We stayed up all night. We crunched the numbers, all of us, and we figured it out. Brandon, how long can Jimmy G hold off Trey Lance as the starter?
Jimmy G will hold Trey Lance off as a starter until he gets injured. And history says that Jimmy G, he struggles to play 16 games. And if that happens and Trey Lance get that 3 or 4 game window where he can come in and light it up, until then, Jimmy G will be the starter. Trey Lance wasn't that much better than Jimmy G, if he was better in the preseason, to go ahead and make that jump. And as we've seen Kyle Shanahan in the past, he loves having 2 quarterbacks. Just for an insurance policy. If you remember back in Washington, he had RG3, and he also drafted Kirk Cousins in the same draft class. So at the quarterback position, he loves having an insurance policy just in case he might need to go to that guy. Now, like what he did in the preseason, he's a genius. When defensive coordinators and defensive teams in the NFL prepare for you weekly, we get a whole playbook on how to stop this one quarterback and this one offense. With him sprinkling in Trey Lance, now defensive coordinators and defenses, they have 2 whole playbooks that they have to prepare for, not knowing how deep in any of them that they have to go to stop this 49ers offense, which keeps defensive coordinators and defenses up at night. So Jimmy G will be the starter. He will be the starter until he gets hurt. And that's when it gets passed over to Trey Lance, and Trey Lance likes it.
All right, so Jimmy G has gotten hurt a few times, but everyone talks about Jimmy G like he's Mr. Glass out there. He had some bad luck trying to pick up a few extra yards a handful of times. So there's no guarantee that Jimmy G is going to be hurt. In fact, when he's healthy, you know how far they could go, Nick? They can go all the way to the Super Bowl. And I know everybody wants to say, but when he only handed the ball off, he wasn't really throwing the ball. Jimmy G was winning games. We know that Kittle loves Jimmy G, wants Jimmy G as their quarterback. But I want to dig into something that you said about 2 weeks ago, because I think Trey Lance is obviously the quarterback of the future, right? Nobody doubts that. They gave up too much draft capital to get him. I think Jimmy G should keep the job for as long as possible, and you can go to the Super Bowl with him because you literally did. And I think it should be akin to Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes, where you're like, you know what? People have got it wrong. Patrick Mahomes should have come in earlier. Do you see that scenario playing out in San Francisco?
Yeah, I don't think they should have to wait for the injury. That isn't quite inevitable, but I think you're underselling. He started 2 games for the Patriots and got hurt in the second one. He then started the very end of the season for San Francisco, was fine. The next year, early on against the Chiefs, got hurt. The next year was healthy. And then last year got the ankle injury and missed a bulk of the season. So the guy's been hurt a lot for a limited sample size of starts in his career. But let's assume he's healthy. I don't think you should have to have an injury to go with Trey if Trey is showing you enough in practice and his snaps in the games. And you're right, Wilds, that I said the thing that people have wrong about the Chiefs is the missed opportunity of Mahomes' rookie year. Everyone remembers Mahomes' first year starting. 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns, league MVP, takes him to the AFC Championship game. Nobody, and everyone's like, oh my God, it was perfect. He had all that growth as a rookie, and then he gets to that level. How much better do people think Patrick Mahomes got from January of 2018 to September of 2018? I'm sure he got better, but how much better? Because if he was 75% of the guy that he was in year 2, by the midpoint of year 1, they should have played him. And my Chiefs maybe could have won the damn Super Bowl. Certainly could have beaten the Titans at home. Marcus Mariota came into Arrowhead and won a playoff game. He started like 6 more games after that in his whole career. They're like, it's Marcus Mariota. But they went with the safe choice. They're like, Alex Smith's been here. He's the veteran. And by the way, the same thing that you're saying about Jimmy G, I could have said about Alex Smith. Well, he can take you to an NFC Championship game. You know how I know? I saw it. Did it in San Francisco. I've seen it. But everyone knew there was a ceiling there. So if Trey Lance is showing Brandon a grasp of the offense, if he is showing growth throughout the season in practice and in real games, we can throw the schedule up real quick. I think there's a spot in the season where even if Jimmy G's healthy, I think could make sense. If you look at the Niners schedule, about 2/3 of the way through, or right halfway through the season, that Rams game, if they play the Rams and they lose, and then you have the Jags, Vikings, Seahawks, Bengals, Falcons, Titans, Texans over the next 6-7 weeks. What do all those teams have in common? None of them have a great defense. 4 of them have a terrible defense. I think that would be a spot where you might say, you know what? Let's go to Trey Lance to get him prepared for what could be a playoff run and for the Week 18 game against the Rams, which the division could come down to that game. So I don't know if it should have to take a Jimmy G injury, Brandon.
Nick, you make so many valid points right there. Well, one thing I don't agree with when you're comparing him to Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes could have played as a rookie strictly because he's so pinpoint accurate. This is one of the most accurate passes that might ever play the game. And all you have to do with an accurate quarterback is, can you grasp the playbook and can you get the line sliding the right way when you need to? So it's not that hard. Trey Lance is not that accurate. Is he a playmaker? Yes. Can he beat you with his legs and his arm? Yes. But this isn't a guy that you can just put ahead of Jimmy G. Brian Flores even though he's a great coach, he's struggling with that now in Miami. Because if you go to Trey Lance in San Francisco and he doesn't get it and you got to go back to Jimmy G, it can kill his confidence. NFL players, what separates those guys is confidence. Everybody can play. And now you've seen when Brian Flores went from Tua to Ryan Fitzpatrick in the fourth quarter, it kind of killed Tua's confidence. And now I'm not sure if Brian Flores likes what he sees in Tua right now, even though Ryan Fitzpatrick left the building down in Miami. That's why you're hearing this smoke about Deshaun Watson might be able to come in. So I think Brian Flores played with Tua confidence right there, and that's the last thing you want to do with Trey Lance. So I wouldn't make that switch unless I necessarily see it on film, and I have to make that switch.
And there's another way for Trey Lance to get in as the full-time starter. And Wilds, I want your thoughts on this because you're higher on Jimmy G than most. And that is, let's say, for instance, Washington's defense is as good as everyone believes it's going to be, and their offense is as bad as I believe it's going to be. And that the Cowboys don't run away and hide with the division. The Giants are bad. The Eagles are mediocre. And through 6 weeks, Washington's like, you know what? If we can just get adequate quarterback play, we can win this division, go back to the playoffs. If the Niners are winning, but if Jimmy G hasn't shown massive growth, would you, as a resident Jimmy G fan, be willing to trade him? Because I think that's the other element here. Is that, see, you wouldn't, I think the Niners would. I think the Niners look at it as they know they got to make up these draft picks somehow. 3 first-rounders for Trey Lance is a bill that's going to continually come due. And the best way to recoup that is the inevitable Jimmy Garoppolo trade. Most people think it's happening after the season. But if there's a quarterback injury for a playoff team or Washington's the team with a great defense and no quarterback, like that, I could see that trade potentially happening during the year. If Trey Lance is showing growth, Wilds, that's something I believe John Lynch will look at, will seriously consider if that presents itself as available.
Okay, so Trey Lance, who we know is going to run the ball, and we know already has like a chipped finger. What if Trey Lance gets injured? Yeah. I don't want to speak it into existence. And then who do you have? They just got rid of Josh Rosen, who oddly I'm all of a sudden high on Josh Rosen. But I would, Brandon, for me, I would say I would never have too many quarterbacks. I like what the Eagles are doing. I like what the Bears are doing. Like, not only do we have a backup quarterback, our third-string quarterback is also ready to go in. So if the Niners were winning, I would want Jimmy G as sort of that ultimate Nick Folesian backup if they make a playoff run and something were to happen to Trey Lance. I would not move him during the year.
I definitely wouldn't move him during the year. And like you said, you never can have too many quarterbacks on your roster. Whether somebody get injured, somebody go in a slump. But I just don't like juggling quarterbacks. You have one here, he's not playing well, let's go to the other. I think you just let Jimmy G ride out. And if you want to trade him when the season is over with, you can trade him. Jimmy G, when he's a starter and he's healthy, he's going to play well. It's proven. So you just let him play this year. Let Trey Lance, you can have him sprinkle him in 15 plays, let him get his feet wet. And you can kind of sit him for this year. It's no rush. Kyle Shanahan, he's not on a hot seat, so you have time to let your quarterback into Jimmy G. Just go ahead and just play 16 games and see where he can take you again.
Well, Brandon, you said it, when he's healthy. By the way, can I just say, kind of love a sun-splashed Kevin Wildes on a Friday morning.
Oh, thank you.
I'm kind of loving it.
Oh, that's great.
Makes me feel, summery, if you will, even though we're saying goodbye to the season. Let's talk some basketball. The future of Ben Simmons in Philadelphia. To be specific, all signs pointing to Ben's departure before the season even starts. So what does that mean with regards to trades? What does it mean with regards to potential landing spots? Maybe nothing right now. Nick, tell us what you've been hearing about Ben Simmons.
Okay, so there's been a lot of reporting about this, seemingly from the Ben Simmons and Clutch perspective. And most of it's been dead on accurate. Broussard reported, I think before anybody else, that Ben's camp said, you can trade me literally anywhere. The list of teams is anywhere other than Philadelphia. That is 100% accurate. There was another report, however, that, because there's another Clutch client on Philly, Tyrese Maxey, that Clutch Sports and Rich Paul said, we want him out of there also. That is completely inaccurate. That didn't happen. This is just about Ben and Ben's desire to go elsewhere. There's been reporting that Ben has threatened to hold out of training camp. That's true. The new information is this. The Sixers don't actually seem to care. And by that I mean they are not going to trade Ben Simmons because he has said he's not going to be there for training camp. I do not believe, and I have not been led to believe, they think that this is a hollow threat. I think that they're prepared that he might not be there for training camp. But once that was put out there, Wilds, we all started talking about it as if it's a fait accompli that Ben Simmons will not be on the Sixers roster game 1 of the year. I now truly believe Ben Simmons will be on the Sixers roster game 1 of the year. Now, does that mean he will be playing? That's more up to Ben than it is anybody else, and Ben can do what he thinks best for him and his career. But the Sixers understand very well that even as down as everyone is on the pairing of Ben and Embiid, and as down as everyone is on the Sixers at this moment, they are just a couple bounces in Game 7 or just an unforgivable collapse in the fourth quarter earlier in the series from being a coin flip with home court advantage to make the NBA Finals. Like, we don't think about it that way anymore, but this pairing was about to be playing the Bucks with home court for Philly to go to the NBA Finals, and what Philly is not going to do is trade their second best player for a package of guys or mediocre draft picks. And so the idea that Philly is going to wait for an all-star or wait for a team, as a, for instance, your Celtics, who think they're going to be good, but what if they start off terribly? And they start saying, you know what, as much as we love Jalen and Jason, maybe Jason can use a better running mate that doesn't have so much of the skill redundancy that Tatum and Brown have. A team such as that. Maybe if Denver starts slow and it's like, man, we need to get better on defense. We've needed to get better on defense for years. Would they make Michael Porter Jr. available? So I don't think this is ending soon. Training camp opens in a few weeks. Ben Simmons will be on the Sixers, barring one of these all-stars coming available, 3 weeks from now.
Okay, so do you think that he will be on the Sixers in theory, or do you think he actually suits up and puts on a Sixers jersey? Because there's all sorts of things that happen preseason. You have to shoot promos. You have to shoot, you know, like, hey, this is for the calendar. This is a little charity event we're doing. I think it would be very strange if he shows up to any of those. Now, we saw James Harden kind of went the other way, where he's like, all right, I'm going to sort of put it in your face that I want out. I'll be out with a little baby. I'll be giving him honey buns and big bags full of money and a lovely watch, to be honest with you. I'll show up. I'll play well for a few games, and I'll stink it up for a few games. But he did put on the Rockets jersey, and he kind of had to have a really poor performance where everyone's like, all right, this is too toxic. Let's move. Do you see Ben actually putting on a Sixers jersey? Because I do not.
Listen, I believe that his threat is more than a threat. I believe that he is willing to take this to the limit. I just don't. There's two parts of this. One is it has been an incredibly long time since we've had an actual NBA player holdout. Like I remember, gosh, 15 years ago, maybe a little longer, Tracy McGrady held out from the Rockets for like the first few days of training camp, but he didn't skip any games. Now we have had guys where it hasn't been called a holdout, but guys who had, you know, very curiously timed injuries. It's like, oh, I'm not available. And so, by the way, I'm not accusing anyone of doing that in the future. I'm just saying we know historically that has happened. But guys in the NBA tend not to want to miss game checks. Now, maybe Ben is willing to, and it seems like he's saying he's willing to, and obviously he wants out, and his representation's doing everything they can to get him out. But the Harden situation, Wilds, I think is actually instructive. Because Harden, after playing well for a couple games, dogged it, right? Did that hurt his trade value at all? No.
Just bad press for a little while.
Houston took the wrong trade. But did anyone in the league think, oh, James Harden, not a top 10 player anymore? No. So the reason I mention that is even if Ben Simmons isn't playing, or if he is isn't playing well, I think the smart people in the league know how good he is. We know what he can't do, but we also know what he can do, right? We know that he creates more three-pointers than any player in the league over the last year. We know he's one of the 3 best defenders in the league. We know what he does well. So I don't think that even if he's not playing, his value is going to plummet, because I think the league knows who he is as a player for good and for bad, which is why I think Philly is willing to have this get more uncomfortable maybe than Houston was willing to have it get.
Yeah, so it's such an interesting story for this reason. With James Harden, when James Harden forced his way out of Houston, the sort of narrative was, you know what? I'm a great player. I did all I could. It's time for a fresh start. And everyone's like, yeah, you're probably right. Houston's not kind of going to contend for a championship. And when AD left New Orleans, like, you know what? I was drafted here. I tried my best. It's time for me to go. And everyone's like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, it's a nice T-shirt. That's all, folks. Okay. So the weirdest part about this Ben story, Nick, is that 2 things. One is that Ben did not necessarily, I don't want to say try his best, but he didn't perform great, and he still wants out.
Correct.
When it's usually the opposite. It's like, you know what? The team is not built around me well enough. It's actually his own doing that is causing him to come out. Reason number 2 is this. And I actually think it's salvageable. We heard from Doc. We heard from Joel after the game. We recently heard from Joel tweets, and there's reports out of Rich Paul's camp. You've got reports out of the Sixers camp. We haven't heard from Ben at all. And I don't think that this is totally unfixable if Ben came out and said, you know what, everybody? I had a little bit of a hard time shooting. I let you down, but I've been working this whole summer. I've looked at the statistics. I think we can be a good team, and I think I appreciate the support that you've given me over the years.
That's not going to happen. Wilds,
that's never going to happen.
That's flatly not going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, so both camps here are entrenched. Ben is entrenched that he is not, that he is not playing for the Sixers. And the Sixers are entrenched that, okay, that might be your stance, and we can't force you to play, but just you can't force us on when we will trade you. We are going to wait until it is a trade that allows us to stay in the championship contention. And what I think Philly, the one piece of leverage, Jenna, that I think Philly has that nobody has really discussed is, it's not like, let's say Ben Simmons misses the first month of the season while on the Sixers roster. It's not like Philly can't still win at a high level. Now, could you win a championship with that roster without Ben? No. But it's not like their ability to be a top 3 seed in the East or to be in the playoff contention is going to go away if they just have the Sixers roster as is, where Tobias Harris takes a bigger scoring load. Embiid gets to really play his position in full, not have to hang out on the perimeter. Like, they know they can still compete in the beginning of the season, even if Ben's not there. The Rockets knew, all right, well, if Harden's going to give half effort, we're screwed anyway. Like, that's not the situation Philly's in. So I think both camps are very entrenched. Right. But the idea, Wilds, that Ben's going to have a change of heart, that's not happening.
But this would be a costly move if he holds out. He gets fined, so we'll see. An all-star each of the last 3 seasons.
A lot of money.
See what's next for Ben Simmons. Oh, check this out. Monday morning, right here on First Things First, we have our official 2021 NFL season predictions. You do not want to miss this, I promise you. It's always a good time when we do it. Monday, 7:30 Eastern, right here on First Things First. Time now for Stories to Start Your Morning, sponsored by Ram Trucks, built to serve. We are up in New England with a story for all Patriots fans. Looking at you, Kevin Wildes. With the release of Cam Newton a few days ago, Mac Jones became the man in New England, but was it warranted? Apparently, the answer was yes. OC Josh McDaniels, big fan of what he saw in Jones this preseason. He said he continues to put the game and the team first. But if you need further proof, check this out from Pro Football Focus. Mac had the highest preseason passing grade. Yes, by a rookie quarterback since 2015. That's ahead of Patrick Mahomes. That's ahead of Baker Mayfield. It's ahead of Dak Prescott. It's ahead of Alex. So, LaVar, are you buying Mac Jones' preseason success is a sign of things to come?
Oh, man. I don't think we should get too carried away. Don't get too carried away, people. Yes, I think Mac Jones is going to make a fine quarterback and could possibly be the answer and the key to this franchise getting back to prominence. But we don't know that just yet. We don't even know if Mac Jones can lead this team to a winning season this year. All we know is that Cam Newton wasn't good enough to be the starter for this team. That's what I came away with from this offseason, is that Mac Jones is indeed good enough to play as a rookie, but the guy that you had as the veteran to start was not good enough to be the starter. That's the only thing I've come away with. So to place this crown, so to speak, on Mac Jones' head as the chosen one of New England right now today, I think it's a tad bit premature. I think everybody needs to pump their brakes, because if you start creating these mega massive expectations for what you believe Mac Jones is going to be, you're almost discrediting how difficult it is to be successful in the National Football League. A lot of coaches have been doing this for a lot of years, and a lot of these players have been doing it for a long time and are very good at what they do. So I wouldn't get too carried away just yet. Be excited, but don't get too carried away. Keep it in the proper perspective, Nick.
Well, so and a few other things here. One is 5 first-round quarterbacks this year. Right now, all 5 quarterbacks, all their teams, all their fans think they're all going to be awesome. We know, historically speaking, that has no chance of happening. The best quarterback drafts ever have 3 star quarterbacks, whether it's Eli Rivers and Big Ben, the greatest one ever, Elway Marino and Jim Kelly, or the one recently where you have Lamar, Baker, and Josh Allen, who I know people love. Like, 3 quarterbacks, the high watermark. And so we're not going to go 5 for 5, so who's going to be left out of it? And my money would be on Mac Jones being in the out rather than the in. But Wilds, you're the Patriot fan, and you said something really interesting earlier, which was basically, I trust in Bill Belichick. The question I would have for you is this. Since Belichick made Brady the starting quarterback, has he made good quarterback decisions? So, like, he's drafted a bunch of them, and you'd be like, well, Jimmy G. Jimmy G is the one that was a good draft pick. Yeah, but the follow-up to the Jimmy G decision was he wanted to move on from Brady reportedly and, hand the reins to Jimmy G. Brady won that little power struggle and then won a few more Super Bowls. So that really wasn't a good quarterback decision. He finally did move on from Brady. Brady then won a Super Bowl. That wasn't a great quarterback decision. Last year, signed Cam Newton. Didn't seem to be a great quarterback decision. So, like, what makes Belichick obviously the greatest coach ever, but what gives you faith that when it comes to the quarterback position, he has it figured out other than he went with Brady over Bledsoe 20 years ago?
Yeah, well, that one seemed to work. So that sometimes you can do something so great that it can carry over for the rest of your career. Like, I don't know if I can go through J.D. Salinger's entire sort of bibliography, but if you write one great one, people think that you're pretty good for the rest of your life. Yeah. See, LaVar, my take on Mac is this. Mac Jones just needs to be good, and Belichick will make him look great. It's like when The Rock just wears like a normal T-shirt. Like, holy cow, that normal T-shirt sure does look awesome. Here's some stats we got from last year. 12 for 19, 69 yards. 9 for 18, 84 yards. 13 for 17, 118 yards. Not great statistics. And guess what? We won every single one of those games. I know you get mad when I say we. Like, wow, you weren't on the team. Like, nice try, LaVar.
You're all right.
On the practice squad
you're all right. You're all right.
So if Belichick can, if he plays mistake-free football, he has some rookie learning curve. Belichick, the offensive line will be great. The running game will be great. And the defense will be great. And special teams and Matthew Slater will be great. Mac Jones can be here and look awesome. Trevor Lawrence needs to be up here to look awesome. Mac Jones does not. Belichick will do most of the hard work for him.
Trevor Lawrence is not coming after Tom Brady as the heir apparent. We could go to Jenna time after that because that's a mic drop. There's nothing left there. You're coming after Tom Brady,
knows what you're
and you're
talking
telling me
about.
Trevor Lawrence has more pressure. Please, you're kidding me.
All right. We'll let that sit
Lawrence,
there.
Wilson.
We got to get going.